What has been the most distressing thing you've seen out in the community?
I knocked on one whānau door in Mangere where there were 18 people in a three-bedroom home. And
Wow.
some of them were working, some of them were on the benefit, some of them were really young, some of them were old. And it was just, we see a lot when you're in politics, but 18 people in a three-bedroom home.
Wow.
And you know what was really awesome, though, Bomber, is they were awesome. And they came out to have a chat with me. We got talking about why it's important to vote and the challenges that they have. And you know what? Despite their circumstance, they're hopeful. So we've got a job to do to make sure that, we represent those people, that we can get real outcomes for those people.
I also think very closely that if you have a look at Peeni there, he does look quite a bit like Dr. Dre in my position. I think he's got a bit of a Dr. Dre vibe going on there. So there's another one. Chewie, I got to not queue it up. I've got to get to it though. But that's the first. That's the first one. And then Bomber tells a story about poverty in Auckland, and it actually starts with Simon Wilson talking about being at a debate for the mayoralty, and only one person even used the word homelessness, and then that goes into a conversation around poverty. Have a listen to from last night.
And in Mount Eden, Helen White, the local Labour MP, to her credit, was the only speaker on the night who used the word homelessness.
Yes.
She was the person who said this is part of this larger issue.
Yeah.
She did not get a good reception for that,
Yeah.
even though this was a room full of Liberal people.
Yeah.
When it came to their own houses, they didn't want to hear that and didn't want to hear that connection.
Follow-up question. Just want to have a quick chat about poverty and inequality with you. Heard a story last week. Solo mother in a South Auckland home. She had in her cupboards cereal boxes that were filled with rocks, so that when social welfare people turned up and they looked in her cupboard and they checked to see if she had food, they wouldn't take her kids. Now, that to me is such a horrific reality of where we are in 2025 in our city.
Yeah.
And I can't hear, and I don't hear any solutions other than multi-millionaires being able to buy expensive mansions. That ain't going to help that woman, right? She's having to put rocks in the cereal boxes so she doesn't lose her kids. Thoughts?
I have to say the thing about the multi-millionaires buying mansions upsets me, not because of itself, but because I think fundamentally it's a red herring. We should be talking about how are we going to build more affordable homes, how are we going to house the people who need it, how are we going to look after the people at the bottom. And that is the housing issue the city needs to confront. It's really acute in Auckland.
So there's a couple of things to do with poverty and how people are living in Auckland in particular, but I'm sure we can spread that to other parts of the country. I've got another clip to play about Shane Jones's hypocrisy, which is a story told again by the lovely Simon Wilson. But Chewie, you want to respond to either of those first?
I think, God, it's like this the story of the cereal boxes, like that fear of the government coming to scoop up your children because you're poor. It's not a new story. It's an old one. It's something that we would have heard a lot in the 90s.
Yeah.
Under a different national government. And I think Auckland especially is really going to be a focal point of inequality because of how the economy is doing. Like we quite often talk about how Auckland is the engine room of our country just because of the amount of commerce that goes through it. And look, I was at a thing at work where we talk about safety of staff members and that sort of thing, and it's a conversation of what we see and what we see are the pressures of people. Does it drive aggression and that sort of thing? The person that was doing this workshop for us is from Auckland. And she was like, well, how do you guys feel? And we're like, oh, we think things are sort of coming down. They were real bad after COVID. And she's like, wow, it's so different up in Auckland at the moment.
Wow.
someone gets a bill bigger than what they were expecting, they come in aggressive, they're emotional, reactionary because they don't feel like they can cope with it. And she says that seems to be a vibe throughout the city. So, yeah, I think, National have caused a lot of pain, and there will be people that are looking for hope, that hope with things will get better, because at the moment things are very, very bad.
And I guess everything's probably heightened in Auckland, and it's not the same for everyone. Other places in the country, there is higher rents than the odd house in Auckland, but in general, it's so much more expensive to live that your 2-bedroom, $750 a week, flat. That, and then I don't know. I get unfortunately there's so many of these freaking stories now. I get lost, whether it was on this show or whether it was someone else talking about someone had to pick between paying their rent and feeding their kids, and they said, we hope the landlord's going to be okay, because of course they're going to feed their kids first. And I think obviously a part of that is going to be cost of rent. I mean, it's not cheap necessarily anywhere. But what you get in Dunedin for $600 a week is going to be $1,000+ a week in Auckland easily.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not saying it's easier. There are many people who are vulnerable, and especially financially vulnerable all around the country. But when you add that extra layer of then the Auckland premium for everything, it just must make it so much worse. And I'm pretty sure on the show last night they said that unemployment might be like 8.5% in Auckland, and like 11% for Māori. I could be wrong, but it was higher than the national average that we're looking at the moment. So more expensive, fewer jobs, more debt. You can see why people might come into a store with a bill they weren't expecting and be like, their response is kind of like, what do you expect me to do? Even though it may outwardly come out as anger and shouting. But how am I going to pay this, so to speak?